Hello and welcome to the Scientology Money Project on YouTube, part of the extended SPTV network. On the Wizard of Oz, they were worried about lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! Now Church of Scientology is worried about live streamers, SPs, and ex-members. Oh my! David Miscavige, what did you do to pull this in? This is your problem, SPTV. You pulled it in. Live streamers out in front of your orgs, you pulled it in. I mean, if David Miscavige is going to be consistent, then he pulled it in because he's an SP, a real SP. I wanted to welcome people who are here for the live stream on Grant Cardone. Heavy mess worker. Look at him with a snow shovel and no shirt on. Boy, that's really studly. Grant Cardone is a stunning example of what's wrong with social media. Agreed. Scientology brings the worst out in people. Agreed. In my humble opinion, listening to Grant's financial advice is like cancer. Agreed. We're in agreement, heavy mess worker, and thank you for being here. And thank you for shoveling the snow. Someone has to. I don't want to. Hello, Jeffrey and everyone. Hello, Karen. Hello, Lisa Burton and Denise Locker. Hello, Jeffrey. Love the details you provide. Good work. Well, then stay tuned today because it's going to be some interesting stuff. Adorable Anarchy. Good to see you here. I love that name, Adorable Anarchy. Anarchy. Hello, OBG Foster. Glad to have you here. Mary Correct Smith. Good evening to you, indeed. So last night's live stream, I told a story, and I'm going to do just a little 2-minute thing here to compare. Last night's live stream, I told how L. Ron Hubbard's flagship Apollo met its inglorious fate. After the Sea Org came ashore in 1975 and started to destroy Clearwater, Florida, the flagship Apollo was sold to one party for $90,000. It was built in 1936. Sold to another party for $188,000. And then, and this is a comparison I'm going to make. L. Ron Hubbard's flagship Apollo was destroyed by a train. True story. It was sitting in a shipyard, or actually at a dock in Brownsville, Texas. And one dark night, a big freight train moving fast through the yard, several of its cars jumped the tracks, smashed into the Apollo so hard that it twisted the keel. I mean, there was like, I think it was 3.5 million pounds of freight cars, 7 freight cars, hit the Apollo, or which was now called the Arctic Star. It hit it so hard that it destroyed it. A train killed the Apollo. So I'm going to argue in this, I'm going to make my thesis that Grant Cardone and Gary, his brother, are headed, there's a big train's heading for them, and that they'll meet the same fate as the Apollo. But I'm going to just show you that for those of you. I want to revisit it. I had something fun. I looked at the article from the Brownsville Herald, page 1C, of Sunday, July 19, 1981. And this was the Apollo after it had become the Arctic Star. And the train jumped the tracks. And, you know, there's always, just like the Cardone brothers, there's always so much fraud. So I was reading through this article, and it was newsworthy because basically after the train cars smashed into the Apollo, and basically it caused the ship to flex. That is, the stern went one way and the bow went the other, and it kind of snapped the keel. They didn't even know if they could tow the. They didn't know if they could tow the former Apollo to the wrecking yard. It was really dangerous. They had to like take all the metal off the top. They had to unload thousands of pounds of weight from it, and they're just to get the thing to float so it wouldn't sink on the way to the wrecking yard. And I think that's what's happening with the Church of Scientology. They're weighted down by all these unnecessary orgs and such. So predictably, they'll have to start selling off assets so they can tow it to the. But what was fairly funny, the owners, Zanzibar Corporation, which was a mysterious Panamanian LLC out of the Midwest here in the U.S., which did no business in the U.S. but was in located here in the U.S., claimed the ship was worth $35 million. And, eventually the court awarded, I think, $290,000, less the mortgage on the ship. So the owners came up with about 90,000. So the ship was vastly overinflated by its owners. That reminds me of Cardone Capital. Just that's my opinion. I think, um, you know, so anyway, something that was funny, I reread the article last night after the show. And like my shows can go long, just like my articles on the Scientology Money Project. A lot of people say too long, didn't read. Well, yes, I understand, but if you want the details, sometimes you stick around and read details. So it's entirely up to you. This show's not going to go that long. Well, it might. I don't know. We like to hang around. So this was so when the owners were saying it was worth $35 million to replace the ship, and that's what the railroad, which later became Union Pacific, the owners, Zanzibar, was saying Union Pacific should pay them $35 million for an irreplaceable, riveted ship, and the railroad was going to pay them about 50,000 for scrap. So there's a big difference in court. There's a picture of the captain, Captain Manning. He was asleep with his wife. His daughter actually reached out to me when I wrote the article, I think 2018. She was kind enough to reach out. She was on the ship when it was hit, and I wanted to thank her for that. I'd like to do an interview, and she graciously declined, which I understand. But here is part of like fraud everywhere, and this kind of reminds me of Grant Cardone and Scientology in general. Thought my the highlighted section. It says, quote, as a contention of the Arctic Star's value, Zanzibar has on file several letters reportedly received from people wanting to buy the ship, such as those from Her Excellency Baroness F.B. Flaustein, Antoinette von Marquardt, 3 million, Rafael Ovidio Olmos of Mexico, 3 million, and W.D. Writings of Beaumont, 2.5 million. That was before the collision. So you can see, I'm sure if I were Zanzibar, the owner of the old Apollo, this is such L. Ron Hubbard Scientology stuff. This name, Her Excellency Baroness F.B. Flaustein, Antoinette von Marquardt, wanted to buy the ship for 3 million. That is such bullshit. So it just goes to show you, you can say, hey, my ship's irreplaceable. It's $35 million in value, and the Baroness F.B. Flaustein, Antoinette von Marquardt, Baroness von Marquardt, wants to pay me $3 million for it. Is that captain a pirate? No. What happened? He at some point in his life, the captain lost an eye, so he wore an eye patch, and he's there. You can see him smoking a cigarette. That's probably a non-filter Camel. Hardcore old school, like my dad smoked Camel non-filters way back when. That was one of the tests of being a man. Do you smoke non-filter cigarettes? Because apparently, if you used filters, you were a pussy. That was the thinking. But the exception came when the Marlboro came along in the hard pack, as they called it. That was the cigarette of choice. So there was Captain Manning, and the Baroness wanted the ship, and the captain was not a pirate, but he did wear an eye patch. And okay, so I think I made a prediction last night that the fate of the Apollo, or getting hit by a train, being reduced to a slag heap, I predicted that's the future of the Church of Scientology. I'm making the same prediction for Cardone Capital. And holy collision, Batman! No kidding. How many? It's so rare. I called it karmic because how many ships have been destroyed by trains? One. It was the flagship Apollo. I don't know if it, and now correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Apollo was the only ship to be destroyed by a train. It still blows me away. Me too, Mary. It's such a great story. My ship was destroyed by a train. It would sound like you were using substances, but it's true story. And that's what's so amazing about watching Scientology implode, because some people, you just can't believe Scientology is as bad as it is. One could presume intended insurance fraud, absolutely adorable anarchy. And Games saying, "Oh, I like that. Welcome." Good. No, sorry, gnome sane. Gnome sane. Good thing it wasn't trying to sail the oceans of Venus. Dr. Hubbard said that he was almost hit by a Venusian freight locomotive. He said that some people think that Venus is quite hot with its methane atmosphere and uninhabited. Well, I just was almost hit by a Venusian freight locomotive. I'm allergic to locomotives. He said that he was on Venus. He claimed he was physically on Venus and he was almost hit by a Venusian freight locomotive. You can look it up. This is why you need old school people like me to tell you some of the great old stories. And that's why I'm going to go through the history and my piece last night on the flagship Apollo and its fate. I'm going to tell about Hubbard's World War II military career, his boyhood from being born in Kalispell, Montana, I believe, up through maybe college. So I want to break it down. I want to give some history to all the new people out there. Hey, LRH almost got hit by a train. He did, Dan, on Venus. It was a freight locomotive. And isn't it interesting that Hubbard would say that almost and then his own ship would get hit by a freight locomotive. Wow. Uh, if he died on Venus, would he be dead weight or dead freight? That's a good question. And I think he would be just dead weight and he would go burn up in the atmosphere. I don't know. Maybe Hubbard's BS had so much gravity that he would begin to orbit the sun. Who knows? I mean, I don't. But let's get to our guy. Let's get to our guy Grant Cardone. Now I'm going to jump up. Wait, the wrong slide. I have to stop sharing that. Stop sharing. Okay, we have to get rid of Captain Manning and get to Grant Cardone. One thing Grant Cardone's famous for is talking about cash flow, cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. So Grant Cardone, and this is a misapprehension to his, I think many of his investors, especially his fanboys, who want to have, a private jet and cars and all that. I think his unsophisticated investors, that is Grant Cardone's, when Grant Cardone says everything has to cash flow, that's like he has verbal diarrhea. He's probably said cash flow. He probably says it 10,000 times a day. And cash flow is not profit. Cash flow is not profit. It's just, I pulled this out of the 4-week MBA program because I think that's what Grant Cardone has. It may be, or he probably got a 4-week MBA at the Hubbard School of Administration here in Los Angeles. But basically, cash flow is just, you can read the definition. It's the third main financial statement, together with income statement and balance sheet. It helps to assess the liquidity of an organization by showing the cash balances from operations, investing, and financing. The cash flow can be prepared with two separate methods, direct or indirect. Grant Cardone, when he talks about cash flow, never says, for example, that a company can have negative cash flow. He never says that you can have negative cash flow. In other words, cash flow in and of itself is a meaningless phrase, the way Cardone uses it. He says cash flow, baby. Well, simply because you're bringing in cash doesn't mean you're making profit, because Grant Cardone has had to suspend distributions on some of his funds before. So it doesn't mean a damn thing. So this is the first, when Grant Cardone started talking about cash flow, I started thinking bullshit artist, because he's not clarifying and educating his investors on what cash flow is, negative, negative versus positive. Dan and Larry, Tim, it's cash flow because of all that he skims off. Yeah, cash flow into my pocket. I tried to get Chat GPT to create a flowchart of Scientology many times, but all it ever generates is pyramid shaped. Yeah, I think that's where we're headed here, predictively. So it is the Hubbard School of Creative Financing. So that's just the first point I want to make. Grant Cardone, you need to come clean about cash flow and what it really is and how it's not the main measurement. It's just part of the metric of operations, profits, losses. Okay. Cash flow in and of itself, you will have to admit, you'll have to agree with me, Grant, that you can have negative cash flow. Okay. So I think now the reason I'm getting to this, the reason Zach Morgan was on earlier and Aaron Smith Levin has mentioned it, word's out that Grant's being investigated. There's a grand jury. I've heard that stuff. I've actually gotten some calls. I've covered Grant Cardone on my blog for many years, and traffic is up. Guess on what columns? Those related to Grant Cardone and Gary Cardone. My views on those are up, even on my older stories, because I posted a lot of PDFs, a lot of Securities and Exchange filings, and people are looking at the Scientology Money Project for stories on Grant Cardone. My traffic is up. So Grant Cardone, yeah, think about it. If people are looking at my blog about you, it's because they're not reading your bullshit, self-aggrandizing stuff on Yahoo and your press releases, okay? They're looking at my blog and they're looking at SEC filings, okay? So you just keep doing your social media yapping. And that $100 million lawsuit for slander you have against the share. Good luck on that. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, this Grant Cardone, Gary Cardone, his bro, just pushed out this tweet, and I want you to listen to it because it just came out 7 hours ago. And this thing's pretty mind-blowing. So let me grab the tweet, and I want you to hear what Grant is blathering about. Okay, so we're going to share this tweet, and just give me a minute because I'm having to operate a couple things. They don't make it easy. I don't have an assistant or a producer, so I want to make sure I get this right. Okay, so we're looking at this, and we're going to make it large. And listen to what Grant Cardone is saying about cash flow. Okay.
I'm pushing out now $40 million of cash flow a month to families. That's real money.
Yeah.
Now I have some influence in the system and I'm controlling enough money. We could either sell to a big group, a BlackRock, or we slide over and say, hey, I'm going to be a bank. I'm going to turn this into a bank. It's going to be the Bank of Cardone. I'm pushing out now $40 million of cash flow a month.
Now, did you get that? Did everyone, can you put like one in the comments if you heard him, Grant, say he's pushing out $40 million a month to families? Can you put one in comments, please? Because I wanted you to get this. I want to make sure you can hear it. Did you guys hear this?
I'm pushing out now $40 million of cash flow a month to families. That's real money.
Yeah.
Now I have some influence in the system and I'm controlling enough money. We could either sell to a big group, a BlackRock, or we slide over and say, hey, I'm going to be a bank. I'm going to turn this into a bank. It's going to be the Bank of Cardone. I'm pushing out.
Okay, now see, I'm going to play this one more time because this, I think, is what the feds will call evidence. Certainly me as a private investigator is what I call evidence, and I'm going to show you why. And this is part of my process I use when I do a deep dive article at the Money Project. This thing, Grant is going to regret ever making this thing. So let's listen to one more time.
I'm pushing out now $40 million of cash flow a month to families. That's real money.
Yeah.
Now I have some influence in the system and I'm controlling enough money. We could either sell to a big group, a BlackRock, or we slide over and say, hey, I'm going to be a bank. I'm going to turn this into a bank. It's going to be the Bank of Cardone.
Okay, so Grant, shut up. Stop. Shut up. Okay. Okay, so thank you for the ones. Now, Grant is saying that he's pushing out 40 million a month to families in cash flow. Okay, now the problem I have with this is I just went on and Grant and Elena, February 2024, announced that they've put out 6.6 million to investors this month. Well, now wait a minute. Grant Cardone just said he pushed out 40 million a month to families. But then Elena and Grant post that it's 6.6 million a month. So can you imagine Grant under oath in a court of law, maybe a federal US court under, some felony charges? I'm just speculating in the abstract here. Mr. Cardone, could you tell us why you said that you're pushing out 40 million a month but here it's only 6.6 million? Please explain. I don't get it. Okay. Now the second thing. Okay, so first of all, Grant, get your math right. You got to have, this is your problem. This is Scientology's problem. There's no script continuity. If you're going to talk bullshit, keep your story straight. Okay, that's just continuity. And when you lie, you often forget what you said to who. You told your brother Gary you're pushing out 40 million a month in cash flow. Where? How? I mean, it doesn't work. So, so in this tweet, there is Insta, the second paragraph, Elena writes, we have now surpassed 300 million in distributions. Well, they started in 2016 or 2017. So we're going to get to that. Well, she says, well, the syndicators and REITs, that's real estate income trust. Real estate income trust, REITs, it's pronounced REITs. For our people who are not familiar with the term, it's R-E-E-T, REIT, but it's spelled R-E-I-T. Well, Elena says, the syndicator, meaning real estate syndicator, and REITs are suffering and struggling to pay out distributions. We continue to deliver Cardone Capital. I think she means at. And we buy great assets in great locations and great teams on both the investor side and the resident side. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Now, what I want you to know is Elena saying, well, the syndicator and REITs are suffering and struggling to pay out distributions. So first thing, we have Grant saying he's pushing out 40 million a month to family, but the actual number is 6.6 million. I can't figure it out. Maybe he'll explain. And then the REITs are suffering and struggling to pay out distributions. Grant, are you talking about Cardone Capital REIT? Are you talking about Cardone Capital REIT? Because Grant, your wife said that REITs are struggling to pay out distributions. So I guess Cardone REIT, the one you started, must also be struggling. And to that point, Grant, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this because it needs to be talked about. And you said, and I tracked it. Okay, I'm going to share the screen. Okay, so Grant said way back when in 2019 that REITs are bad. Grant Cardone said that REITs are bad. And so he said, don't invest in REITs. He made a video about this. And then in 2022, he starts a REIT. And yet his wife, Elena, is saying, REITs are suffering, but he has a REIT. But in 2019, he said they're bad. He's competing with rich uncles. And another thing, there's this 10X interactive boot camp. Yeah, right. And this is another BS thing from Grant. Look at that. He discounts, he's claiming the value of his 10X interactive boot camp was $1,997, but it can be yours, ladies and gentlemen, if you act now for only $97. $97. If something's worth $2,000 and you're offering it for $97, that's probably means it's worth about, $5. And there'll probably be overpriced beer there and hot dogs as well. It's such baloney. That's an old term. When I was growing up, when something was fake, we'd say, that's baloney. It's baloney. My grandpa, that's baloney. My grandpa also used to say, the best way to double your money is to fold it up and put it back in your pocket. And he went through the Depression. He was born in 1918. Man, he had a hard time. And he and grandma raised 6 kids. He said the best way to save your money is fold it in half and put it back in your pocket. And you know, for me, it's the stock market, real estate. But so this thing, I'm going to show you this video, and you'll be able to hear it since I know we're hearing. This is Grant. I'm only going to play part of it. He was competing with real estate syndicators and REITs, and he's warning you not to invest in a REIT.
Before you invest in Fundrise or Rich Uncles, I wanted to share with you five reasons that you need to reconsider that. If you really love real estate, here are 5 reasons you do not want to invest with Fundrise or Rich Uncles, or for that fact, anything that is about a REIT. Okay, my name's Grant Cardone. I own.
Okay, Grant. Yeah, right. So Grant is saying, don't invest with REITs. And his wife is saying REITs are not paying off. They're not paying their distributions. But Grant has a REIT. So this is part of what, you know, these are the inconsistencies that constitute evidence. This was the whole Pino versus Cardone case. He's acting as a statutory seller. He also predicted, he made a horrible, oh God, Mary, what qualifies as wife's fiscal experience? You know, I'm so glad you, let me show you something. This is completely, I have to show this to you, so please indulge me while I look up something. Oh, where is it? Elena Cardone. I got in a little bit of a, right now she's raising money to pay Trump's $355 million civil judgment, but I can tell you, okay, boss babe. Okay, let me just get here, and I'm going to share this to answer your question, because this is really funny. To answer your question, Mary, let me share a screen. And it's just too much fun to not do it. And this is about Elena. She's like, it's like, oh my gosh. I have so many windows open. Just bear with me. To open. Okay, here it is. There. Let me share this screen to answer your question, Mary. Okay, now, what Mary Crux-Smith asks. Okay, now, Scientologist Grant Cardone, I wrote this in 2018. He was opening a non-accredited investment fund controlled by FCC rules. And a accredited investor is someone who can invest over 100,000. And under Obama law, there was Regulation A, which became for non-accredited, that's unsophisticated people, and you had to invest a minimum of 5,000. So Elena writes, I convinced Grant to open a non-accredited fund for all my friends and family who want to invest in a real hard income producing asset. A real hard income producing asset. Probably not your husband. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's an aside. If you never learn to multiple your money, Elena writes, you will be broke forever. You must multiply money. FCC about to open our fund for non-accredited, and spaces are limited. FCC rules, not mine. So there, Mary, to answer your question, Elena thinks the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, controls the financial stuff. I think she was talking about Federal Trade Commission, FTC, but even that's not right. It's Securities Exchange Commission. So Elena, the poor daffy girl, a little bit muddle-headed there. She can't even get it right. So, oh, there's the bros. There's the bros. Great. They're twin brothers, by the way. And you know, when they talk, it's kind of a mutual congratulations society.
This is my twin brother, okay? And this guy's done awesome in his life. unbelievable story, something that you should learn from. So, Gary, before we get started, first of all, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, for sure. Glad to be here.
I know how busy you are.
Yeah.
We're at his offices at Chargebacks 911 in Clearwater, Florida. They do, well, we'll talk about.
Wait, chargebacks 9/11. Okay, so first of all, chargebacks 9/11 got fined by the U.S. government. I covered that because they were coming up for scammers, credit card scammers who collectively had over $250 million in credit card fraud and chargeback 9/11. Gary Cardone and his ex Monica Eaton, who, by the way, her PR contacted me and had me take, made it clear that she hasn't been a Scientologist since 2006. So Gary, who got in trouble with the Securities Exchange Commission, with the state of Florida, and got fined for involvement in helping credit card scammers. So Elena Cardone thinks that the Federal Communications Commission regulates non-accredited funds and that REITs aren't paying, although her husband owns one. So again, anyway, so I have to take this one because I'm going to get through this, but let's just have some fun. Okay. A Christian person. And it's like I told you before, I have my Bible. I used to listen to when I would drive late at night. I used to go out to the desert a lot, and there was this sometimes when the radio, the stratosphere or whatever it is, the radio waves would propagate, and perhaps some ham operators could help me. Anyway, I would get signal down from like the bayou, and I'd listen to religious radio late at night because I like doing it. Art Bell, but this preacher out of the bayou used to come on the radio and say, "I want you to get your Bible, get your King James Bible, Holy Bible, only Word of God, of 1611 KJV translation." So for me, I'm a 1611 KJV guy. No offense if you want to use, some other thing. But anyway, get your Bible. So Grant Cardone wants you to get your credit card out and sell your house. Grant Cardone actually made another really bad. He said that the feds would not hike interest rates. And let me see. How did Grant Cardone organize it so nobody can track his private jet? Gulfstream G650 650 ER Echo Radar Rego Flight and 3. I don't know. Does he just not turn his transponder on? We can track Tom Cruise. Dream Wars. This is a great part of open source intelligence, or OSINT, which I always preach. Yeah, I don't know what he did. Does he not turn his transponder on? Or did they take out the transponder and put an e-meter in? I don't know. That's a great. I don't know what the FAA rules are on that, but according to Elena, you would call the FCC to answer that question. Or maybe you'd call if Elena was up, if Elena had to answer your question, she'd have you call the LA Department of Water and Power, who handles jet transponders, according to Elena. Oh, you know what? You poor sorry son of a bitch. You're banned. We make good money and you can go fuck yourself. No. I was letting you write it, but really, I think that was Grant Cardone. Yeah, my wife and I make a good living doing that. So anyway, trolls are going to troll. What can you do? Anyway, and by the way, if you knew the money, wow, it's good. Okay, so he oozes shyster vibes. Yeah, this is one of the things. So anyway, let's get back to Grant Cardone. Okay, so that's his REIT he created. And now this is Grant's page. And this is what's one thing I think is misleading that I think the government may be looking at. At Cardone Capital, that's one of his companies, he says that he's raised $1.2 billion and he's distributed $306 million to investors. That would lead you to believe that if they have raised 1.2 billion and put out distributions of 306, that there's maybe a 25% rate of return. He also claims a total assets under management of 4.4 billion, and he doesn't declare. Here's the thing that I think one reason Grant's having some problems. He doesn't tell you how much in debt he is. But if you read his SEC filings, he's probably 75% leveraged. He claims it's lower on some, but he always has a caveat in his SEC saying he can be up to 80% leveraged or 80% in debt. So to me, this is not any kind of actual statement upon which an investor could rely, or a potential investor. To me, this is an infographic that's false and misleading. This is actually, I wouldn't even call it an infographic. Let me rephrase that. This is just an icon. It's not any meaningful presentation of data because it doesn't say how much debt we have. He doesn't say over what period of time the funds were raised, how the investor distributions have been paid over what period of time. He doesn't disclose. Grant Cardone fails to disclose how many times they've had to suspend distributions, how many times they've cut distributions. And he also, most importantly, Grant Cardone says in a lot of his SEC filings that he's the largest single shareholder. He usually holds Class B shares, and he gets 35% on the back end. He gets distributions, he gets management fees. So that $306 million, one thing I want to know is how much went into Grant's pocket as a Class B shareholder. And he reserves the right to, pay himself later. He also doesn't disclose the fact that he buys properties with his own money, sells them for a profit to Cardone Capital investors, and thereby gets rid of his own financial risk. And he takes a fee. So he'll buy a property, say for $100 million, sell it to his company for $115 million, pocket the 15, and then charge his company a 1% acquisition fee. And then he gets management fees. So this is really an icon that's fairly meaningless. It's absolutely fairly meaningless. And it doesn't tell you anything. The 14,483 investors, I did the division, that's about $82,000 each. So that means that $100,000 to get in as an accredited. Most of this came from his Regulation D accredited. And when you do Regulation A, you can invest 5,000, but you could have to cap it, I believe, at 75 million. So again, this is something I think the feds are looking at, his presentation of data, what it withholds, what it doesn't tell, what you really have to get down into the SEC filings. Grant Cardone claims he's raised $1.2 billion across 23 funds, and he says that he's never lost any money in 35 years of investing on multifamily real estate investments. I don't know if that's true. He's saying he's never lost money. Does that mean that, what does that mean? Where can we actually, Grant Cardone would need to post what he bought something for and what he sold it for. And he would actually have to post the real financials, because I don't know if that's true. I would have to actually see the financials. What to say you've never lost money on a multifamily real estate investment? I don't know. Why should we take it? Loco Juco. Hey, Jeffrey. Hey, Loco Juco. So he says he's got 12,500 apartments across 38 multifamily properties. So anyway, we don't know if this statement can be verified unless he actually posted his track record of what he sold and what he borrowed, paid off the loan. And Grant also, the way he deals structures, it's a 65-35%. So the Class A, the investors get 65% when he sells a property. Grant takes 35%. So Grant would need to disclose how much he's taken on the back end and how much he's paid back, because he cannot pay distributions to himself. He can have deferred income. So again, these are some problems. And right now, this is an older chart where so he keeps raising the numbers every time he does another fundraiser. He'll raise the numbers on his website. So now it's up to 1.2 and 306, which means that since his previous website that he's paid out $58 million, and you would divide that by 12 and probably get a number. So you just have to do some number crunching. I bring this to your attention as part of what I think a grand jury would be looking at. The U.S. Securities Exchange Commission has a pause alert. And you can see it says in the paragraph, the pause program lists entities that falsely claim to be registered, licensed, and are located in the United States in their solicitation of investors. The pause program also lists entities that impersonate genuine U.S. registered securities firms, as well as fictitious regulators, governmental agencies, or international organizations. So in the pause program, these are unregistered soliciting entities. Cardone Trading Option Limited was actually put into the pause program. And this is one of Grant Cardone's companies. Now you can see an address of 44 DeWitt Henry Drive, Beebe, Arkansas, and also his address there in Aventura. And it's CardoneTradingOption.com. If you go to CardoneTradingOption.com, the link no longer works. So Cardone Trading Option Limited, 44 Hewitt Henry Drive, Beebe, Arkansas. I got curious about that address. So, of course, what we want to do is check on 44 DeWitt Henry Drive. And let's go to Google Maps. So there we are at 44 DeWitt Henry Drive in Beebe, Arkansas. And it looks like it's in the middle of an intersection. And we pull it up, and there we're at DeWitt Henry Drive in Maine. And there's a Citgo gas station, and there's a field. And then there's a property, which is not the address. And then there's an empty field. And so, as far as I can tell, and correct me if I'm wrong, the 44 DeWitt Henry Drive in Beebe, Arkansas is in the middle of an intersection, according to Google Maps. And I did some more Google searching. So it was just strange. And I'm going to do some digging, because I don't know what DeWitt Henry Drive is. So this actually, Cardone was doing something called Cardone Trading Option Limited. And the site can't be reached. But what I did, so the site can't be reached. So it doesn't take anywhere, but I'll show that to you. There's CardoneTradingOption.com. It doesn't work. So, of course, the natural thing we do when we're doing digging on Grant Cardone, well, let's go to the Wayback Machine, because we have to see what it was. What was Cardone Trading Option? And where's my, you can't fake cash flow. Oh gosh. I have the Wayback Machine. So we don't have that. We don't need the BB Street. Okay, that site can't be reached. There's Aventura. Okay, that's Cardone Trading Option right there. Let me just get it. This is from the Wayback Machine. This will blow your mind. And this is where I think I can start weaving together some things. Okay, on the Cardone Trading Option website, this is a screen grab from 2020. He was promising 24% daily profit and forever. This is one of those, are you fucking kidding me? This was what Cardone was doing. So the SEC put out an alert on this website. Cardone Trading Option was on the pause alert by the Securities Exchange Commission. It was an unregistered seller. Cardone, and this is registered if you go into Florida Secretary of State, which we will. He was promising 24% daily profit in forever. It's a brand new online. I think this is where he got involved with Gary, who's really up to his eyeballs with Card1 Venture and Node 40 crypto. Gary Cardone is just going wild. I mean, on crypto, he moved everything into crypto. So this thing got shut down, and he's got, look at those. This is such a screaming, this seems like a complete Ponzi scheme. Anytime you see investment plans with tiers, basic, silver, gold, you have to pay more money, 500 to get into the basic, and then 10,000 to get on VIP, and you get instant withdrawals. And I tried to figure out what this was. I did some digging. Now this is Gary Cardone, because this is what Gary Cardone is doing nowadays. So it's an automatic online investment platform. Grant Cardone has said earlier that he wants to start a bank. Now keep that in mind. I think I know who his candidate bank is. But this was Grant Cardone putting his oar into the cryptocurrency world. So this is just something that the feds have cognizance of. And now you do too. And he's promising all kinds of things. Cardone Trading Option Limited. So why this disappeared, what this was about, refer your friends. So there were, Grant's done a few things where he's had referrals. He was referring people, and he's done those kind of things. And we see Muhammad Ali, put in 1250 and took out 19,320. Muhammad Ali. Because you're guaranteed 24% daily profit and forever. So that's pretty mind-blowing thing, that kind of scamminess, but it's there. We got the document. So that's why Cardone Capital trading option, Cardone trading option was put out of misery. This is an interesting thing. You can go into there's different visualizers, network visualizers that are free to use. And let me make sure I'm done with, Cardone Investments. Let me just share this before we go to that. I want to share a screen. So there's a company, if you look at, you can't read this really well, but anyway, there's Cardone Investments. And I was looking at Cardone Investments because I was trying to figure out this Cardone Trading Limited. And if you look at all these entities that are related to Grant Cardone, Gary goes to one, and then there's another listing to Cardone Investments, Cardone Equity Fund LLC, and so on. So what I found that I wanted to show to you, again, this is what the feds would have cognizance of and be looking at. There's actually a this is the wrong one. This is just the search. You can go to California, sunbiz.org, and look at all the companies in California. I'm sorry, Florida. And I wanted to show you the one, Cardone Investments, because this is something else I want to know. And maybe people out there in the audience can reach out to me. If you go to scientologymoneyproject.com, you can contact me. My email address is there. See if this is it. Detail entity by name. Share. Yes. Okay. This is it. So you can see that this is Cardone Investments, Inc. So there was at one time an entity, Cardone Investments, Inc., and it was voluntarily dissolved in 2023. So this is very curious why it was voluntarily dissolved. So who was Cardone Investments? What were they doing? And why did they enter into a voluntary dissolution? And it came coincidentally with the problems that Chargebacks 9/11 was having. So that is another data point you look at. So I'm trying to put together Grant's total network. And this is where you use network visualizers. And there's other forms of publicly available information. You get like the Cardone Equity, CUI Enterprises, M-Elena Holdings LLC. Who are these people? What do they do? And this is just methodical digging. You do use a method to do it. And we're going to look at the corporate dissolution, Cardone Trading Options, SEC. So he dissolved this thing, and I don't know why. And so what I'm trying to do is find out why it was dissolved. What were they afraid of? Because the entity was started, Cardone Investments was started 2014, and he suddenly dissolves it, and there's no word of it. You've got to do some digging. So let's take some comments. Is this a Million Man March math? You know, Adorable Anarchy, sometimes when you go into something, Grant Cardone and Elena have so many entities. And it's like Scientologist David Gentili, when the FBI executed a search warrant in 2019, and they found, as the Commonwealth of Massachusetts noted in its lawsuit against GBB Capital, its civil lawsuit, they found hundreds of bank accounts, hundreds of entities. And that's very common. I wouldn't be surprised if Cardone had hundreds of entities and hundreds of bank accounts. So it probably is, yeah. And then that's why it took 5 years to get David Gentili into criminal trial, and forever talking about future faking. Yeah, talk about future faking. Wow, Ponzi shell game. Yeah, let's look at that again. That's just part of it. This is like the actual amount is much, much larger. When there's a way to search, let me see if I have that screen up. There's a way to search using registered agents. And I did a search. I found probably over 100 companies connected to Cardone by searching through registered agent. That's another way to search. You search for the registered agent. So, I don't have it. It's on my other computer. Let me just look. Okay, so I don't have it, but yeah, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Thank you for posting the link there. Arkansas, I hear the sound of dealing banjos. Deliverance, yeah. And there's my email address. Thank you, Alex. I thought you were going to be on different hours, but I'm glad you hopped on. Now, this is the Cardone non-accredited fund. Non-accredited investors, again, and Zach Morgan on his channel, your lawyer friend, Zach, he said that, and other people have said, Aaron and Cardone watchers in general, has said that Grant Cardone is running out of investors. And I realized that when he went into Regulation A. So again, accredited investors under SEC laws, you have to be sophisticated. You have to have over $1 million in assets. And that can't count your house. You've got to have $1 million in cash to be an accredited investor. Normally, on a Regulation D for accredited investors, the minimum investment's $50,000 to $100,000, usually $100,000. You have to have over $1 million in assets independent of your house to invest. And that's because the government has an interest in not allowing people like Grant Cardone to fuck you over. And so if you're an accredited investor, you're considered to be a sophisticated person. You're financially literate, and therefore you're qualified to risk $100,000 of capital. And it's caveat emptor, buyer beware. You need to do your due diligence. So the government assumes if you have that kind of net worth, if you have $1 million or more in cash, then you're financially sophisticated enough to take the risk. And if you lose the money, you lose the money. And but they want to keep people out who can't afford to lose the money, who aren't financially illiterate. But under the Obama program, when President Obama was in office, they wanted to help small businesses because small businesses were saying, we're not big enough to do a Regulation D offering. So, long story short, under the Small Business Creation Act that President Obama enacted, he allowed crowdfunding basically, and that's where you get people who are not worth $1 million. They're non-accredited investors, and they can go in for $1,000, $100, $5,000, whatever. But basically, non-accredited allowed for what's called crowdfunding. And so Cardone, because he's running out of investors, went out of Regulation D and went into non-accredited. And this is the fund that Elena said was created under FCC rules, the Federal Communications Commission. Somehow in her brain, she got it mixed up. And this is their Form 1SA, which you can find online. Again, this is public information. Securities Exchange Commission. There's 1Ks and all kinds of things. A couple things when I read through, I think this is this is the 1SA. Look at that 1SA. Boy, that's in relationship to Danny Masterson. That essay means something else. So the overview, basically, if you look at the top, it said as of June 30, 2023, the company had not yet commenced operation. So on September 28, 2023, which is fairly recently, the company began accepting subscription agreements from investors as part of an approximately $75 million offering under Regulation A+. Okay, so this fund, Cardone Non-Accredited Fund, is looking to raise $75 million. And the minimum buy-in is $5,000. So that's what they want to do. Now, to the point that Cardone is running out of investors, look at subsequent events. Bottom paragraph. The company started offering Class A units on September 30, 2023. As of December 15, 2023, the company has received subscriptions amounts totaling $7.7 million, but has not yet broken in pounds to utilize these funds and has not admitted these Class A subscribers to the company. So what it means is in the fourth quarter of 2023, they only raised 10% of what they were targeting. They're targeting $75 million fundraise, and they only raised $7.7 million. They're 90% off target. They only raised 10%, $7.7 million. So call it 11%. That's how little interest there was in this recent Cardone $75 million offering. So think of this. This is an actual empirical real-world measurement that Grant Cardone is losing his ability to attract investors. That is, there's a finite pool of people who trust Grant Cardone or who are willing to invest with him. And in this economy now where interest rates are up, you can make 5%, if you put some money into a certificate of deposit at your bank for 3 months. Why would you lock up for 10 years with Grant Cardone at 4 to 6%? There's no reason to. It's just now in the era of high interest rates, he can't promise sufficient returns. But the fact that Grant, with all he claims to be a marketing and branding genius, he claims to be a business expert. You've heard a lot of his claims, but yet when he puts out a $75 million offering, instead of people rushing to invest in it, just as Scientology claims people are rushing into the ideal orgs, Grant only raised 10% in 1 quarter. That is that's horrible. As a financial person, a CEO is responsible for bringing in the money. The salespeople need to bring in the money. I would have to expect Grant's furious with his salespeople. They're not out pushing this thing. Because if you have 1 quarter and you have all the launch and you have the Cardone name behind you, you would think you would raise more than 10% in 1 quarter. That's actually a horrible performance from a business point of view, in my opinion. That's horrible. If I had, if I were a CEO of a company and a VP did this, only brought 10% in 1 quarter on a big launch, the VP, he or she would be fired. There wouldn't even be questioned. You would be fired. That's unacceptable performance. That's actually horrible performance. And that's my opinion. That's awful performance. That I don't see. See, this is Grant's privately owned, and his contracts say he can't be specified for lack of financial performance. But that's an embarrassment, and that's why it's important for me to bring it to your attention. Grant is running out of investors, and there is a finite investment pool, and there's a lot better deals out there to make a lot more money than what Cardone's offering. So, also in the Form 1SA, Cardone makes it clear that he's the manager and that he can loan the company or the fund money. He can loan it and he can use alternative financing. I don't know if that means Russian oligarchs trying to, get some hard US dollars, into the US. But basically, Grant can make interest by loaning his funds money. And he's done that before. So when you get down into it, this is the kind of stuff regulators would be looking at. Like, is this a mechanism whereby Grant can loan the company money at 10 to 12% and beat the market? I mean, does this get into self-dealing? So the fact that the manager, that's Grant Cardone, can loan his own company money at what he deems to be market rates, in order for him to make money off his investors who are getting 4 to 6, he could loan the money, loan the company money at 12. So I don't know what this means, but I'm digging down into it. Other than it gives Grant permission to do whatever he wants with the company. And that gets to be a real slippery slope. Probably the most shocking thing I read, and this is the self-accredited fund. This is Ponzi-like behavior. Quote, and this is Grant Cardone Capital. Quote, if you invest in our new non-accredited vehicle, you'll receive a Form 1099 DIV. A Form 1099 DIV is a tax form that records income earned from entities or persons other than your employer. For our non-accredited vehicle, it will record the amount of distributions you receive and whether those distributions are a return, are income or a return of capital. Let me read that again. It will record the amount of distributions you receive and whether those distributions are income or a return of capital. Oh my God. He's actually admitting that he can use new money to pay old investors. Let's look at that again. Excuse me. Because this was like, it will record the amount of distributions you receive and whether those distributions are income or a return of capital. What got David Gentile in trouble at GPV Capital, he was returning capital. So new investors would come in and he would pay the old investors. You're not making money, you're losing money. If your 1099 says it's a return of capital, that means Cardone would be taking in new investor money and just be paying you return of capital. That's a Ponzi scheme. You're using the new investors to pay the old investors. And they actually disclose it that Grant can engage in return of capital. So he talks about cash flow, and that's why I began the show with saying you can have negative cash flow. You can say you have cash flow, but if you leave out whether it's negative cash flow or positive cash flow, this is showing some indicators to me of fraud. But then when you get into the fine print and he comes out and says he has the right in his non-accredited fund to return capital rather than income, that's why I think there's an investigation. That's why you want to look at the financials. That's why I think when you see a company legally wanting to get you into a contract where it can give new investor money to you as an old investor, well, if you're the new investor, you could get screwed because your money is not investing in the company. It's paying another distributor. We call that a Ponzi scheme. So that's something when you dig down into shades of Madoff. Yes, it is adorable anarchy. 10x, yeah, 10x bullshit. Is Cardone Q zero? That's funny. Relative to the Trump. So, yeah, that's really funny. If you read Grant's Twitter page, and we might just jump on there. Okay, so what a blatant con. Yeah, and it's disclosed. And this is why I've always looked at the Scientology contract years ago. You know, I was saying that these contracts that Scientology makes you sign, beware of them. Well, now Cardone is saying he's going to return, he can at his option engage in a return of capital. And why he would do that is he could say, here's how I see the scam. When Cardone says he can engage in the return of capital, if we go back in time on my earlier slides, this slide says that they distributed 6.6 million to investors this month. Now, question to Grant and Elena, was any of that 6.6 million a return of capital? Was it a return of capital? And what percentage, what's the return on investment? Did that 6.6 million, because you say you have 4 billion plus assets under management. So if you have, what was the number we read? Yeah, Grant's saying yes, 4.4 billion assets under management. So my math people out there, help me. If you have 4.4 billion assets under management, so get out your calculators, help me out, and yet you only return 6.6 million in a month, what percent of 4.4 billion is 6.6 million? Someone out there, get your calculator out. And so, because I want to, what I'm doing here, when I do deep dive projects, these are the kinds of things I'm seeing. So I know he can pay return of capital. So what does that 6.6 million really mean? Did Grant forego his share that month to make sure he can show a number in his PR? So what does the 6.6 million really represent? That's what you want to know. And that's why this new fund with the return of capital, not only did he fail to sell 90% of the shares, but he can also engage in return of capital. He can also loan the fund money. So this is really interesting. This is a smoking gun piece of evidence, okay? And they haven't on this. I mean, just to keep this fair, they've impounded the 7.7 million, and they haven't. He says they haven't broken impounds to utilize these funds. Has not admitted these Class A subscribers to the company. This language is something. Grant, this shows his anxiety. This shows his attorneys. So he's impounded the 10% he's collected. So he's authorized this to 75 million, right? He's only collected 7.7 million. He hasn't given the shares to the subscribers because he's 90% short of his goal. If I had invested in this fund, I would ask for my money back. If you were one of the people who invested 7.7 million into Cardone non-accredited fund and nothing's happened for now 6 months and your money's still impounded and it's not earning any interest, I would ask for your money back, because the fact that he can have the right to actually pay you from return of capital, none of this is adding up in this fund. Okay, that's the kind of thing. Oh, thank you. We have one buyout. The percentage is 0.000165. Thank you for that. You can see that's the number. And so this is why we go back. He brags, Grant Cardone brags of 4.4 billion total assets under management. He says he's raised 1.2. So the delta would be a lot of debt, probably 70% debt. So we have our answer. He has 4.4 billion AUM, and yet he only paid 6.6 million. So that's the percentage. Yeah, I appreciate that. So this is how you start analyzing it for a deep dive article. And that's what I've been known for on my blog, but I want other people to get involved because it's so important. And this is how you unpack, you start an analysis. And again, I'll put this slide deck on my Filth Force. I like that name. I like that logo too. Looks very corporate. We at the Filth Force say, you should get your money back if Cardone has it. And seriously, get someone wiser to manage your money. Lol. No kidding. No kidding. If he's hanging on to your money, if it's in an impound account and is not earning any interest, it's just parked. He's only raised 10% of the funds, according to the last statement. And we don't know if he'll ever get the 75 million from in this, if you'll get the 75 million. So now something interesting I found digging into the Cardone Capital, the non-accredited fund, Cardone Real Estate Acquisitions, CREA. They kind of operate they're part of the Cardone Capital complex. They signed a master subscription services agreement with CrowdEngine Incorporated. And CrowdEngine actually provides crowdfunding solutions. So now we find by digging into it, we know who is doing Grant Cardone's operations. It's an outfit called Crowdfunding. And I think I have crowdfunding. Anyway, crowdfunding is that's interesting. Crowdfunding is a company that does a lot of the I guess you'd call it the computer, the sophisticated computer stuff to operate a crowdfunding operation. Or I'm going to get CrowdEngine up. I had it up. I want to show you CrowdEngine. CrowdEngine Inc. Okay, so this shows that he signed that Cardone in-house. Cardone used to Grant Cardone used to brag that he did everything in-house. Like he had Ryan Tesco, his former pilot who's now running things. And but now we see he needs CrowdEngine. And I want to show you what that company does. And again, this is investigation where you just want to start seeing how Cardone Capital is built, who it deals with, who its partners are, affiliates, etc. So this is what CrowdEngine looks like. And let me get that over there. So this is CrowdEngine, crowdengine.com. And this is who Cardone in his own SEC. And again, this is open source intelligence. It's all public. So CrowdEngine, find investors and raise capital. All-in-one investor marketing and capital raising solutions. So I imagine they don't come cheap because they're going to get out there and raise capital. And to reach investors who want to lock up their money for 10 years with Grant Cardone, we saw that Grant only could get 10% of that 75 million. So they have solutions: investor portal, document management, syndication, deal rooms, online payments, compliance, and they support Regulation D, Regulation A. There's a good definition there of between Reg D and Reg A plus, what they're calling Regulation A plus or Reg A plus. Reg A has a limit, a $75 million limit, and is targeted to all investors, including non-accredited. Reg A offerings typically have thousands of investors. We can help you manage them. So a Regulation D has no maximum raise limit. Rule 506B is for private offerings, and Rule 506C is for public online offerings. We can help you. So this company, you can see it's been involved in $2 billion raised, 300 clients served, 9 years. And I'm looking at it there. Here's Cardone Capital talking about Cardone raised over 72 million using CrowdEngine. We looked at every option and no one had the functionality or flexibility of CrowdEngine. So Cardone Capital, Grant Cardone himself, is endorsing CrowdEngine for reaching probably Reg A. That's the small $5,000 or less investors. And so Grant Cardone is promoting that. So the reason I'm mentioning Crowd Engine is I found it along with some other agreements in these SEC offerings. So when you do analysis, you want to dig down those forms and check the links, corporate visualizers. The Anthony R.R. Mills show, you are mistaken here. Return on capital on a 1099 would be if there was a sale of property, and of course, income is from rents. Okay, thank you, Anthony. I always am willing to, let's see what Grant is saying here. Let's go back to the master service agreement. I need to stop sharing the Crowd Engine. Let's go back because I think Anthony is. So Anthony, this is what Grant Cardone is saying in the Form 1SA for this. So are you saying that Grant Cardone, am I mistaken, or is Grant Cardone? Because he's calling it a 1099 DIV. And appreciate you weighing in. And I like that logo. That's really cool. That's a really cool logo. I like it. So that's what he's saying. And then we have Pam Cardone 10x prison sentence. Upcoming headline. One interesting thing, going back to that Insta feed where Grant Cardone say he's cash flowing 40 million a month, and now he's so big. He has leverage into the system enough to start a bank. I just want to comment on that before I left. If you're 40 million a month, that's 480 million a year. I mean, you look at the net worth of Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. 40 million a month is not that big in the entire United States economy. So Grant thinks he's going to start a bank. I think I know what bank he's after, and I'm going to share that before the end of the show. So, Anthony, if you could clarify that 1099, what Grant is saying, he may have made a misstatement because that's straight from his work. Now, this is the master service agreement. So basically, I'm doing some more investigating, but I just wanted to show you the things I'm following, the inconsistencies in the statements, the numbers that don't match up, some of the vendors he works with. I do want to show you again, I've got a much bigger view of this thing. So I'm going to show you the visualizer again. Network visualizers like Wiki and other things are really great tools. And this is up on the big screen. Now you should have a much better view of what I'm looking at when I investigate as a research journalist. So this is sort of one high level view of everything that rolls up to Grant Cardone. But like I said, I found over 100 things, and it's in a different format. So there's different ways to visually depict data, and that's always a challenge to show data. But when you start digging into some of these companies, and I think this one shows 10x Health, and I want to know what they are. So when you start digging down, you look at each one of them, like Cardone Enterprises, Cardone Woodway Square. Most of them would be apartments, but some of them could be other businesses. And you want to see like Gary Cardone. This is Corporation Wiki. You register. It's a free account. And what these things do, they give you the visualizer. So for Gary Cardone, these are the people who he's connected to. And if we wanted to look at Weston 592, we go down and it takes a minute to populate on the visualizer, but this is a great tool. So you can see on Weston 592, it connects to other. Now the Equal Opportunity Fund, let's just go there. And I know like his Big Rock LLC sold a shopping center in 2015, I think for 12 million in San Diego. So this allows you, these visualizers allow you to get the names of people like who is Scott Morgan, what is Cardone Enterprises Group, Inc. So this is a great tool, Corporation Wiki. It's free to use. pretty phenomenal. So I like educating my listeners because the more power you have, you can look at things for yourself. And so we just go through that. Like I said, the Big Rock LLC, when I looked at that, they had sold a shopping center. They were in La Jolla, California. And I think when Grant left, he had a shopping center down there. So there's 10X headquarters. So it's nice to be able to go through this quickly, to have this much speed, to just sort of look at how the Cardone machine is built. But I didn't get the idea. This is a phenomenal tool. So that's what I'm digging for. Now, the R.R. Mills show. Maybe we do a live sometime. It could still be a scam or Ponzi, but there could be completely legitimate return on capital on a 1099. Agreed. I understand. So, and that's why maybe the feds are looking into it, Anthony, or Mr. Mills. I have an attorney named E. Stuart Mills. I'm sure you're not related. So it's interesting. These are the gray areas. This is why regulators would be looking at it, investigators would be looking at it. So Anthony's making a really important, subtle point here. It could still be a scam or a Ponzi, but there could be completely legitimate return on capital on a 1099. Yes. And where GPB Capital, David Gentili's Ponzi-like scheme of 1.7 billion, what happened is they went down that slippery slope, and this often happens. Companies begin legitimately, but then they decide to cross the line, like what happened with GPB Capital. There was a year where Jeffrey Schneider said to David Gentili, and that Jeffrey Schneider is Gentili's co-defendant in the upcoming criminal trial, June 2024. Schneider said, we have to man up and write some checks, meaning they had to cross the line and become a Ponzi scheme. That's putting new investor money to pay old investors. Schneider said, we have to man up and write some checks. And that's quoted in some court documents I read. That's the allegation. And so you cross the line where you're legitimate. And as a result of that and doing some other financial fuckery, by the way, financial fuckery, that's an actual legal term. Not really, but it should be. There should be the crime of fuckery. We should just get real about, in the courts of law, instead of Latin words, they should update it and call it the crime of fuckery. You stand accused of the crime of fuckery. That should be a coverall felony for like religious cults like Scientology and other people. Just the crime of fuckery carries a minimum of 20 years to life. So this is an important point. So GPB crossed the line, and then it's just like dominoes, because once you commit one crime, Anthony, you know how it is. It's like easy to do the next crime, and then it's easier to do the next crime, and then pretty soon it's like, oh, what the hell? And I think GPB Capital, like Reed Slacken, was hoping, because they issued another Reg D offering for 1.5 billion. And I think they were hoping that 1.5 billion could cover the holes, and that they could pay back all the investors and paper over and pay everything and make more money if they had another infusion of cash. But what happened with GPB Capital is they were supposed to issue a financial statement for 2016, and they couldn't because it would reveal fraud. It would actually reveal criminal fraud, and they couldn't do it. So they kept delaying with the SEC, and the SEC, that hit a tripwire where the SEC said, okay, fine, you're not allowed to raise any more money. So that the SEC forbidding them from raising money killed their 1.5 billion Reg A offering, which I think they were going to cut loose in 2018. I found it online through a portal. It was like just someone left a password online on this financial firm, Ascendant Capital, and I got it. Just diligence. So yeah, they didn't turn in their mandated SEC term online. So the SEC said, fine, you can't raise any more money. and then they were screwed. They were completely screwed. So I really appreciate what Anthony R.R. Mills show. Anthony, post your link to your show so people can go there. I'd like to go see it. I would like to go see what you do, and maybe we do something together in an analysis. So please post a link to your show. One by 400 million is nothing for Wall Street. You know, you're so correct. And Grant is acting like he's acting like with 40 million a year in cash flow, which we don't know what that means. Again, we don't know. Is it negative cash flow? He's giving his investors 6.6 million a month, but he says he's got 40 million a month in cash flow. But he's also about 80% leveraged on 4.4 billion AUM. So this is again why when you look at the big picture, and you have to, and you get down into the details, like, yeah, $40 million is nothing for Wall Street. I mean, Warren Buffett, his cash pile, if you look at Apple's everything, hell yeah, Fat Freddy's cat. I agree. Looks like you're a doctor. Are you doing surgery? What's my prognosis, doctor? I think my prognosis is damn good. I wonder if Fat Freddy's cat, that's a great picture. I used to work in medical equipment, sell endoscopy, med surge, overhead medical surgical endoscopy. So that takes me back to my corporate career in another life. Would include my my first wife. But did you have a second wife? Fuckery is one of Emily D. Baker's favorite words. Yes, it is. I like Emily D. Baker, and it is fuckery, and it should be like Congress should pass a law. It would just be so cool to have a real courtroom and speak plain English. You stand before this court accused of fuckery. How do you plead? You can take the fifth. Is there anywhere we can read about the investigation, SEC and Grant? No. What we're doing is that's the word out on the street. And so what I do is I began to look for things that would cause the SEC to look at Grant or the FBI. I began to look, and there's people that will talk, former employees. There's word on the street, and I'll leave it at that. When you run a blog like Aaron's or mine, I've been around a long time, people will call and they'll talk to you. So no, there's not like whenever they're doing a criminal investigation or a grand jury, they don't publish it. One, because they're looking at doing a criminal indictment. Or they might even be looking at getting a search warrant. Maybe Aventura will be, it's funny, when GBP Capital was raided, you would call a raid an execution of a search warrant. They GPB put out a press release the day after the FBI raided it and took everything. They got their servers and laptops and documents. And they said, we had an unscheduled visit by the FBI. So they were spinning it. A raid by the FBI is an unscheduled visit. You're supposed to make an appointment before you raid us. Damn it. Now you're going to get all the evidence. Lowly nurse anesthetist. Oh, that's not lowly. That's a very important. Anesthesia is very important and complex. That's really, isn't it true that anesthesiologists make the most money? Because that's such an amazing skill. I don't think you're lowly. I think that's a very noble profession. I've had to go under one or two times, and one time I'd have surgery, and the anesthesiologist was saying, okay, I'm going to give you some of my best witch's brew, and I was out. Boom. I don't know what it was. Local Juco says Hope Cardone ends up in court, so Emily D. Baker covers it. A lot of people will cover it. Yeah, I do too. I would love to see Emily cover that. The house of cards will fall. It'll fall as hard as the freight train that hit the Apollo, thus ending its days. And they had to tow it. and they didn't even know if it would make the tow to the wrecking yard in Brownsville. They had to tow it a short way, and the so it was so frail they were afraid it was going to sink. Health Force, they make real bank too. Yes. Okay. Opposite of unauthorized departure, aka blow, would be suck. That's an interesting thing. Well, Scientology does suck in the money law. I would vote for that. So there you go. That's so. The one question that stands out to me: is there a place you could read about investigations? No, because they're secret. But word gets out on the street, and things leak, and so that's why, like me, I started looking around for publicly available things that Grant had posted, because a lot of times prosecutors will do what's called hanging you with your own rope. So Grant making statements, and you look at the fine print of his SEC filings, and then you look at where he suspended distributions, you look at the language, you can assemble a pretty good picture. Now the feds can actually predictably, if this goes as bad as I think, the next thing we'll look for is the execution of a search warrant on Aventura. That's what would happen, is there'd be a search warrant. That will normally come. And there may have already been people, in the case of GBB Capital, some employees wore a wire for the FBI. And wearing a wire isn't like on the movies in the old days where you have a big tape recorder taped to your body. You know, you see these dramatic scenes where like the mobsters shake you down, they pull up your shirt, and you got this reel-to-reel tape recorder, this little one taped your thing with tape going up to your chest to the mic. They don't do it. Nowadays, the spy gear is so good. It's like a wire is like the size of your little fingernail. And you could put it in a credit card, or you could really embed it anywhere in your laptop. You could put it on the back of your cell phone. The spy gear is so good. So could you imagine David Gentili? Several people wore wires into meetings with him, and he tried to get that thrown out in the in limine motions in limine. Those are pretrial motions, and they got his Google accounts because Jeffrey Schneider was doing everything on Gmail and thinking that would shield him because it was personal and not business. And the judge case said, nope, not good enough. Yeah, get that. Jeffrey Schneider thought, well, if I do all my fuckery through my Gmail, then that's personal, and the government can't seize it because it's not my business email. It doesn't work like that. Your Gmail account's not a shield against crime. Frigging moron, Jeffrey Schneider. Just got here. Guess I'm on the replay crew tonight. Yep. Well, it's there. You know, it'll be up. You know, but glad to see her. Where I was wondering where you were at. That was just there. Like, where's Warrior Queen? She's always here at the beginning, but better late than never. Apparently, the feds did not read the White Gloves and Party Manners book. You're correct. They showed bad manners, and they showed up. And when the feds come to your door, it's not for a cup of coffee. It's not like, hey, hi, Dave Gentili. We were just in the neighborhood. Thought we'd drop by, say hi, like get a cup of coffee. And by the way, could you give us all your laptops, computers, servers, documents, phones? Yeah, that would be great. That'd be great. Thanks. Someday, let's learn about your private investigator stuff. Well, you know what, Lisa? I'd like to. You're learning about part of it now because what happened is I was doing like business consulting when I left corporate, and then that turned into like due diligence, mergers, acquisitions. And when I was in corporate at my level, everyone had to take classes on Sarbanes-Oxley, antitrust, and that was in the fallout of Enron. So Sarbanes-Oxley, antitrust, money laundering, securities fraud, what constitutes a conspiracy. We had to take all these modules, like about 100 hours, and they got me really interested in money laundering. Because I read a lot about Enron, and then I started reading about criminal syndicates and how they move money. So on mergers and acquisitions, when I would consult, I would start doing deep digging. Then I realized I could get a PI license over time. So there was an evolutionary thing. And a lot of what I do is white collar. And so it's just an evolution. This is why lawyers use investigators. A lot of time it's not like Scientology uses PIs. A lot of PIs actually are CPAs. People have CPAs. They're financial experts. The FBI, the federal government, is always looking for financial experts. I have a young friend who's getting his CPA license, and he got an offer to go work for the feds for $147,000 to start because he's got specialist in forensics, which would lend itself to looking for criminal and terrorist money laundering. So yeah, it's sort of one of those things. I am showing you the skills. Most of what I do professionally, you can find online, like I've shown you tonight. It's all there if you know where to look. And in Grant Cardone's case, because you can't stay off social media, two things. If you're going to be a crook, stay off social media. But Grant can't resist it. And I'm not saying he's a crook. I'm just saying that he gives away so much on social media. The other rule, if you're going to steal something you can easily sell. Larry Lawton, America's biggest jewel thief, talked about diamonds were easy to sell in New York. And I like his YouTube channel. So Larry Lawton said, diamonds are easy to sell. That's why he stole diamonds. But like if you stole the Mona Lisa, you couldn't sell it. You can't fence it. You can't get rid of it. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell. Thanks for your auditing activities. Yeah, we're going to keep auditing out there at Celebrity Center. And they're apparently interbulated, somewhat fierce. I walk my dog at night, so we're near it. And yeah, if you go out there and you see the LAPD, last night I walked up when LA Fire Department was there on a call. Anyway, Becky Sue, this is some interesting, Jeffrey. Please keep at it. I will, and I'm glad it. The stuff I do appeals to a certain audience. Some of it I realize not everyone gets down to the financial weeds, but I like to. And on top of it, so some people cover Grant as a social media phenomenon, but the general consensus is something is going on. Something is going on. That's word out on the street. And there you go. So thank you so much. We're going to end the stream with the cool intro, outro, Alex, maybe. So until next time, thank you for hanging around and see you next time.